Hey everyone, welcome to today's fireside chat. We'll just give it a few more minutes for more people to join. Just give it a minute or two, and then we can make a start. All right, so it's now 1 minute past, and I'm conscious that we have a lot to cover. Got a lot of questions on the plate, so I think we should make a start. So welcome again, everyone, to today's fireside chat, Beyond Compliance, Transforming Efficiency Gains into Profitability in Advisory Services. Kanayo Eruchalu, I'm the Client Success Director here at Sinnergy, and I'm thrilled to have you all with us today. As we all know, the accounting industry is at a pivotal crossroads. Today, compliance work generally makes up a significant portion of what we do or what a small accounting practice does, often making up as much as 95% of their work and revenue, and includes services such as bookkeeping, tax preparation, and all the rest. Now, whereas compliance tasks are essential and recurring, providing a stable revenue stream, they're often at lower profit margins compared to advisory services. But advisory services, on the other hand, advisory work on the other hand, typically constitutes between 5 and 20%. I'm sure some people might disagree, of a small practice's services, and could include services such as business consulting, financial planning, strategic advisory, and the rest. But the key thing is that it's valued higher by clients and tend to have higher profit margins, right? So whereas traditional compliance is essential, it's no longer enough to keep firms ahead in a competitive landscape, right? Clients are seeking more. They want more insights. They want more strategic advice, and they want a more proactive approach to managing their financial health, right? And this shift is why having a beyond compliance mindset isn't just a nice to have anymore. It's an absolute must. Now, this transition isn't just about efficiency. It's about helping us to have an increase in profitability as well. So let's imagine a world where your firm isn't bogged down by manual repetitive tasks, which is taking up a lot of time. And instead, you're leveraging cutting edge technologies to free up your time, allowing you to focus on what truly matters. So today's fireside chat is really about us answering questions about how to transition from a pure compliance services firm to more of an advisory services firm. So we have questions like, how can an accounting firm transition to advisory services? How does the value gap analysis work, and how can it be used to enhance service offerings? What are some common challenges and resistant points that accounting firms face when transitioning from compliance to advisory services? And what's the role of AI and RPA technologies in this transformation? To help us answer some of those questions today, we're privileged to be joined by Mark Jenkins from the Gap. Mark has been at the forefront of this transformation from compliance to advisory services. He has over 25 years of experience in public practice, 17 of those years as a director of his own firm, with 50% of his $2 million revenue coming from business advisory. When he's not disrupting the accounting profession, you'll find Mark rowing, cycling, or hiking, using Strava, his 3 active sons, and his Garmin watch to keep him accountable. So say welcome, Mark. Later.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Kanayo. Yeah, look, they're very humble. I'm a humble person. I'm joining you from New Zealand. We did plan to do this from the UK and initially, but I've moved back to New Zealand now, and it's cold and dark. It's 8 o'clock at night in middle of winter. But let me share my screen, and I'll share a few ideas first. So for those of you who don't know what the Gap is, it's a platform to help you to market, sell, and deliver advisory. We love Sinnergy because it's a great product that enables you to free up your capacity. The Gap is there to help you with the how-to do that client-facing, whether it's online or in person, those meetings with your clients to help them to improve their profit and their cash flow, free up their time as well. And so one of the most important things to recognize in any business, and you can share this with your clients as well, is how important it is to achieve leverage in the business. And leverage is really just working smarter, not harder. So right at the very beginning, you've got to make sure that you get better at what you're doing. You need to master your expertise. So I'm sure that everyone listening to this will know that there are things that they can do to get better at what they're doing. But the real gains come when you offshore or outsource, or you contract out, or you take on more people. So you've got to always be getting better at what you're doing. Maybe you're better at adopting technology might be the theme for making that transition at the moment. Maybe it's learning some of the softer skills of advisory. I had a session with a client, an accounting firm today, talking about how to ask better questions of their clients, how to ask dissatisfaction questions that are not open-ended, asking questions that start with how or what would your life be like if, those sorts of questions. So you can always get better at what you're doing, and hats off to you for listening into this, because that's helping you to get better at what you do. Then obviously the offshoring and the outsourcing, contracting enables you to scale your business up. And then this is where the Gap or Sinnergy comes in, giving you some technology to scale your business up a little bit more. So Sinnergy, and Kanayo will explain this, will show you how you can increase your own efficiency and free up your time. The Gap also helps you to do that because it's all systemized. It's got science behind it, pre-work session records, template documents, webinars and client educational events that you can run. So that again is reducing the amount of time that you're needing to put in. And then you could even go higher up the leverage pyramid, the productivity pyramid, by delivering your services one-to-many or online. And in here, a service here, Sinnergy is one of the ones in here, because it's actually a bot in the background that's delivering the service for you. So you could get basically paid multiple times by clients without needing to put the hours in yourself. And I guess that's where that innovation comes in. So just to sum up, really, we're always needing to improve. We're always needing to look at what we can do better. Different people within your business have different levels that they're at the pyramid, and you've always got to have an eye open for what are the new things that are out there, like the Gap or Sinnergy, other software that it's going to enable you to work smarter, not harder. And one of the big challenges that we find, we're working with around about 500 accounting firms globally, and one of the challenges that we often hear is that their clients don't see the value. They know, accountants know they need to be doing advisory work with clients. They may have already adopted Sinnergy. They're already using that. They've got the efficiency gains, but it's not converting into increased sales outcomes in the advisory space. And that's because it's perhaps a bit challenging to sell that value. So at the Gap, we've developed a tool called the Value Gap Calculator, which I just briefly show to you now. And so let's just say we have a set of financial statements. We've used Sinnergy. We've completed the annual accounts. We've got the information here. We've dropped the data from those financial statements in here. There's about 8 data entry points that you need, pretty straightforward. And then we can show the client what's possible. So in this business here, you can see their debtor days are 67. So that means on average, their clients are taking over 2 months to pay them. That would be highly risky in the current economic climate. Even if we could reduce that by 10, it's going to free up 34,000 of cash. Equally, in that business, they're paying their suppliers in 50 days. So that must be stressful for them deciding who's going to get paid. So what if they used some of that cash to pay those suppliers a little bit earlier? They would still have £15,000 left over. So the idea is you're showing the client a £15,000 opportunity to help them, and then you'd position the service of a cash flow and profit improvement meeting. Equally, you can look at their profit. You can turn these detailed sales drivers on, and this is contextual. So if they don't have repeat customers, you switch this off. But let's say we pick one of the 5 ways to grow sales, and we say, well, look, what if we could increase your transaction value by 5%, have the customer spending an average of £82 more per transaction. That's going to put 23 grand on the bottom line. And then what about margin? What if we could lift that margin by 1 or 2%? That's going to add another £22,000 to the bottom line. And so then, because it's maybe a little bit tricky to sell the services, we say, well, look, let's make sure that we pay for ourselves multiple times over. You put your fee in here, and you can see over on the side over here that the client's going to have £40,000 more profit, £45,000 more cash. They've already paid you out of that, and that's going to give them an impact on their business valuation as well, and can quickly produce a value gap analysis report with your branding on it to showcase what it was that you talked about, where the gains are going to come from. A little bit of client education here to help them reduce their debtor days, to help them reduce their payable days. And so we recommend that this service be delivered as part of the annual accounts, and the producer in the annual accounts review meeting, you go through those calculations that I just showed with the client. You produce this output report. It helps them to understand what's going on in their business, and it positions a cash flow and profit improvement meeting. So that's your first rung on the value ladder. So the idea here is that you are showcasing a high degree of value to the client. They're seeing the next step being a cash flow profit improvement meeting. You might charge £250 for that, and the client can say, well, I can definitely see the value in doing that. So you're getting them started on the advisory journey. So how do we get started then? So let's think about that, what I've just shared. You could run a prospective client meeting and use that tool in the prospective client meeting if the client supplies their current set of financial statements. Or if you've got access to their Xero file, you could produce a P&L and balance sheet for the last rolling 12 months and showcase what's possible in that prospective client meeting. Or you could run a cash flow freedom webinar. The Gap has about 20 fully scripted and designed webinars or seminars that you can run with your client, and you would showcase that tool in that meeting. Or you could run an annual accounts review meeting and do that value gap analysis report as part of that meeting. So this is the scalable piece that if you have team members, you can do this across all of your business clients. And then not all of your clients will invest in a cash flow profit improvement meeting, but you'll certainly be getting started with quite a few. And then if you do that well, the client will see the value of doing a cash flow forecast. So these are all light touch advisory because they're not much of your time. This is about an hour-long meeting. This is about an hour to 90 minutes. This is not client-facing, so your team can do it. You can use technology for that as well. But then we can get into deeper advisory after that, checking in with your clients quarterly on how they're going on their actuals to their budget. And of course, then you need regular up-to-date data, out of Sinnergy, so you can have that information at your fingertips. And then best practice would be all of your clients would have an annual business plan. So there's a great opportunity to move up this value ladder, starting the transition from efficiency gains in your business and a better annual accounts process where you're actually meeting with the clients and showing them what's possible and moving up the value chain. So just in that graphic that Kanayo talked about before, switching from 20% to 40% advisory, and then maybe up to 60% advisory. We have a lot of firms in New Zealand who have made this transition because they've had to. We don't have a lot of making tax digital, something we've had for a long time in New Zealand. So very simple tax structure. So accountants have really had to reinvent themselves. So thinking about where would you start? I think, Kanayo, you had one of the questions in the for this fireside chat, but I think you had a question for me on this one. Am I right there?
Absolutely, Mark. And thanks for all that. I think one of the questions that we have just on that is what are some common challenges and resistance points that accounting firms face when transitioning from compliance to advisory services?
Yeah, and I think there are multiple ones, but there's some real common themes here. That what we hear the most is people they say they don't have the capacity, they don't have the time, they're too busy, they've got so much compliance work going on at the moment. Even though there's all this talk about efficiency gains, they've got lots of work on. So how to overcome that is to really have a close look at what it is that you're doing with your clients at the moment, and reimagine your own business, maybe using the value gap calculator on your own firm, what it would be like if you could increase the transaction value per client by, say, 20 or 30%, by not just with a price rise, but by offering more services. So if you offer more services, you could then make the choice to have fewer clients. And so we have one of our Gap member firms up in the Orkney Islands, of all places, who has doubled the fee per client and halved the number of clients and got his life back. So you can certainly do that. That's one of the biggest challenges. I think behind the scenes also there's a bit of a confidence issue, and I'll speak for myself here. In my training, I wasn't trained as an accountant to run a business, or I wasn't trained in selling skills. I did one paper on marketing, I think. It was very out of date. So we lack a bit of confidence to have those conversations with clients. So having a system or having a process behind you, having a community of like-minded people, the Gap community has over 1,000 people in it that are contributing into our Facebook group. So having that community of support will help with confidence as well. But where to start? You definitely want to make a plan. You have to use technology. Just think about how much technology you use for your basic annual accounting process. You need the same to improve your efficiency there on your coding and reconciliations, like you can with Sinnergy. You also need technology to help you with the advisory piece as well. Offering a low-cost, high-value service that cash flow profit improvement meeting would be super helpful. And then look to grow your offering through your team. So things like forecasting or management reporting that your team can deliver. Excuse me. So the main thing here is to make sure you're in as part of a community of like-minded people. So, I had a bit of a question for you as well, Kanayo, just in return that we talked about before in terms of the role of AI. So how does AI and RPA technology play a role in transforming the traditional compliance-based accounting firm into a modern-focused one? What are your thoughts on that? And perhaps you could share your screen on that one too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a really good question, Mark. I think when I was putting up the slide, for me, I think technology. Let me just share this slide. But technology for me will always remain an enabler. Technology has been around for years and years and years. And when we say technology, it's not necessarily digital technology, which is our space, but technology has always enabled humans to do a lot more than they are averagely capable of doing. Within the accounting space, I think the more, so if we look at the slide, the slide speaks to it a lot. So given where we are today, where most accounting firms are doing, what you find in most accounting firms is people doing the manual, the repetitive, right? Low level work, right? Things at the bottom where you have the automation, right? So the more you can automate those low level repetitive tasks, so all the tasks that are below that line of demarcation, right? So preparing reports, recording activities in Xero or QuickBooks, doing bank reconciliation, payroll processing in apps, all those low level work that add value to the other work that needs to happen. The more it can be automated, the more capacity that the firm that is created within the firm. So it frees up people to be able to do what we do best, which is creative work. But secondly, and more importantly, it creates capacity. It means that you can add on more clients without necessarily doubling your headcount, which is where the profitability comes in, right? And then that freed up time and that capacity can now be translated into value add work that we can deliver to clients. That's one way that can be achieved. Now, where does AI come into all of this? Like I said, today we have automations like QuickBooks, we have Xero, right? But we still have our people spending as much as 70% of their time doing low-level work, right? So we still have people clicking buttons to reconcile transactions. We still have people clicking buttons to or copy pasting data from Excel spreadsheets into either Xero or some other application. So if you think about all the time-consuming repetitive tasks that happen in practices today, so some of which we have on the screen, so everything from creating payroll journals to reconciling bank transactions to generating reports to publishing transactions in whether it's HubDoc or Dex or auto entry and a whole host of other things, right? These things keep us down. They're essential, but they don't add that much value. They drag and take away. They can be a drag and they take away from the more important high value work. Now, AI and robotics is a technology that can be trained to pick up these tasks, to perform these tasks, right? And I'm going to show us how that's possible. But assuming we could do that, right, suddenly it means that skilled staff can now focus on more strategic activities, right? And as your practice grows as well, you can very easily scale. I mean, I was going to, if people are willing to, I could ask a question around if you were to double your bookkeeping book of business in the next 1 week. So wherever you are today, think about it. If you could double the work, could you service those clients without adding headcount? The answer will probably be a no. But with AI and robotics in, your answer will suddenly change from a no to a yes, because the bookkeeping, catch-up bookkeeping that you need to do will probably be done by the bot. The basic compliance services work that you need to do, most of which, anything that involves clicking buttons or using keyboards that is logical, we can train the bot. The bot can be trained to do it. And we'll give an example we'll look at two examples, both within Xero, both to do with bank reconciliation. So here's an example from one of our clients, accounts ladies. So Brenda is account lady's practice robot, and Brenda has been trained to do what Debbie used to do, which was basically going to Xero, select a business account, reconcile transactions that are either green matched or have bank rules against them. So if you have an apply rule in Xero, or if it's green matched in Xero, click an OK button. Right? That's the logic behind it. And ignore all other transactions that don't meet the criteria. Repeat the same process over and over again for all clients in very simple terms, right? So this is how it works. Now, Brenda will be triggered by me clicking the button. or Debbie clicking the button. And once Deb clicks the button, you'll see Brenda go to work like you and I would. So she's going to launch the browser. She's going to log into Xero, right? A regular human being, right? Select a business account, and then the reconciliation starts. Right? You recognize some of it. If you use Xero, then you probably recognize what's happening right now. So she's going to be looking for transactions that are green matched or have an apply rule in Xero on the right hand side. So for green match transactions, she actually checks the name in the bank and compares that with the name in Xero. If the two of them match, then she's going to look at the date, compare the date in the bank with the date in Xero. If it's within 90 days, then Brenda is going to click the OK button. If it isn't, she's going to ignore that transaction. And if the transaction isn't green matched, has an OK button, but isn't green matched or bank rule, she's still going to ignore it because she hasn't been trained to do that. Now, she's only going to do the things that she's been trained to do, and it doesn't matter whether there is 500 transactions in there to be reviewed and only 10 are ready for her to pick up, right? She's going to keep doing the work every day of the week, right? Now, imagine you had this, so as an example there where you had Ridgeway Bank, it had an OK button, but it didn't meet the criteria, so it was ignored. Now, imagine having a practice robot that not only does the bank reconciliation, but before it starts doing the bank reconciliation, it goes into Dex or HubDoc and publishes transactions that have been set up. So if the client sends an invoice in, HubDoc does the OCR, uses OCR to extract information and gets it ready for you to review, for it to be reviewed. So the bot goes in there, reviews the transactions and publishes it if you haven't set up the auto sync, obviously, right? Then comes into Xero and does the bank reconciliation and does that every day of the week, right? All through the month. That means that at the end of every month, you are sure, or your client can be sure that their transactions have been reconciled, and you can actually start generating management reports on the back of that, right? So that's how I see this technology enhancing the capabilities of small accounting practices going into the future. Okay. Now, here, she's finished the work, she's logging out, and job done. Okay. Now, one of the questions that was asked is, so you have the technology, you've implemented it, what's the best way to get good value from it? And from my experience, these are the 6 keys really to maximizing your investment in robotics and AI. The first thing there is really you need to be able to define clear objectives. What do you want to achieve? What are your long-term goals as a business, and how's technology going to play a role in doing that? So if you haven't done that, that's probably a good place to start. Define clear, measurable objectives that will serve as a compass to let you know that you're moving towards whatever the goal is. So as an example of an objective will be, we want to expand client services, right? Now, it might align with an objective to provide value-added services to our clients. Now, a measure could be to offer real-time financial reporting to 75% of our clients within 1 year. And then we can look at how our RPA and robotics can help us achieve that. A, by making sure that we're doing our bookkeeping right, and then B, making sure that the books are okay and we can generate reports. And then we can now start looking at other areas that we can add value, right? Or you might be setting another target could be reducing manual processing times, right? So if today you're spending 20% of your time or 80% of your time doing manual reconciliation, a target could be to decrease the time spent on manual reconciliation of bank transactions by 30% within the next 3 to 6 months. Or it could be to decrease the time spent on processing payrolls manually by as much as 50% within 6 months, right? So once you've define the objectives, make sure it's aligned with your overarching business strategy. And then the other thing, because we mentioned about resistance to change. That's one thing that you can expect. The one question I get a lot is, if I start getting the bot to do this, does that mean I have to let go of my people, of staff? So people are worried about their jobs being taken by...
Hi, good.
Right. Hi, Rose. Did you have a question?
Yeah.
Go on. I don't think that was for us. So if people are worried about the robots taking their jobs or AI taking their jobs, so I think fostering a culture of innovation, communicating to the team within the organization what the value is and how it can help us to actually elevate is important. So the more we tell people, educate our team, and then ask them for, once they've bought into it, once they can see it, right, they can help us to accelerate the use of the technology. And some of the ways that you can do this, like I said, includes having regular meetings and brainstorming sessions with your team, and celebrate innovation automation projects that yield positive results. So if you deploy AI and robotics and it starts doing part of bank reconciliation, right? Celebrate with the team. So suddenly it's helping us to free up time. What else can we be doing? What else can we automate? What don't you like? What are you doing manually that you feel bogged down by, right? And then establishing a recognition program. So people contribute ideas on how to automate the practice. Should they be recognized, and probably things as little as giving out vouchers within the team for ideas that end up saving the team time is really positive. And there are lots of other ways. Now, getting to the nitty-gritty of it, prioritizing. So there's always a risk that you could end up boiling the ocean, which is why it's important to prioritize automation. So understand where to start. Usually the best place to start is with the low-hanging fruits. So things that are simple, straightforward, logical steps are very well understood, are a good place to start. So which is why most practices will start with things like bank reconciliation, transaction publishing, payroll processing, because those are very logical steps and fairly well understood and fairly well defined by the technologies in which they are done. So prioritizing is one. Next thing is to optimize iteratively, right? Is a fundamental, so you must maintain, to be able to do that, understand what you're going to do, understand how you're going to do it. And then once you have done all that, obviously, by doing that, you're now ready to enhance client services by introducing advisory services and things like that Mark talked about earlier. I think that's it in a nutshell, really, from a technology standpoint. I don't know if there's any other questions around how technology helps, Mark.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how you might measure the ROI there, Kanayo. What are your thoughts on that?
How do you measure ROI? Yeah, good. So I think the first thing to do, like we said earlier, when you define the objective, it needs to be SMART. For those of us, I'm sure a lot of people already know what SMART is, but for those of us that don't, SMART is an acronym for, it has to be specific. So your objectives have to be specific. You need to understand what it is that you want to do. I'll take an example that I gave earlier. So if you're setting an objective to reduce manual processing times, right? A SMART objective will be to, as an example, to decrease time spent on manually reconciling bank transactions by 30% within 6 months. So you can see it's specific, it's measurable, because we know that we're looking at a reduction of 30%, right? It is time specific, the T, because we're looking at within 6 months, right? And we have reviewed it, we believe is realistic, and we believe is achievable. right? So if we're looking to reduce it by 30%, the first thing to do will be to measure where we are today. How much time are we spending, right? And if the team is spending, say, 100 hours every month on bank reconciliation, and then in 6 months' time, we expect it to have gone down to 70% of our time, right? So I think the trick there is set the objectives, right? Understand what the objectives are, set a baseline, to do an analysis to understand what the baseline is, understand number of transactions, understand the number of clients you do it for, understand how much time is being spent doing it manually. So we know day zero, this is how much time we're spending. And then 180 days from now, we expect to be spending 70% of that time, not more.
Yeah, and I think on the flip side, if you're wanting to measure your ROI from your advisory side, so you could look at your average hourly rate per client. So you could divide the fee by the number of hours going into it. So if you're using AI and robotics, then that will increase your average hourly rate. Or you could look at just the straight ROI from a team member. So the revenue they're generating divided by the hours that they're working. So typically you want to be getting around 250 to 300% ROI out of your team. So if you're using robotics and AI, then that will increase that average hourly rate and the ROI itself. So I think you're right. You've got to have the right objective. You've also got to. I've seen a lot of firms that have used AI or used efficiency gains, and then the work's just expanded for the time available, so people don't fill up that time that they've saved with other value-added services, and hence the conversation we're having. If you're going to free up time and capacity, what are you going to do with that time and capacity? What's your team going to do with that? And that should reflect in that average hourly rate. Yeah, nice one.
Absolutely, Mark. I think that's always been the concern, I guess, is having freedom, and it goes back to the people conversation that I mentioned. So suddenly, if we introduce technology and we're freeing up all this time, what do we do with our people? What are they going to be doing? And I think that's what you just said speaks to that directly, because if you haven't got a plan day one, for the business, because there's an accounting practice, I think of everything as a business, right? So every business should have a growth plan, right? You want to be, what's your target for the year? You're looking to grow revenue by X%, right? Are we doubling it? Are we tripling it in a year? And how are we going to achieve it? Are we going to achieve it by getting more compliance work, which isn't a bad thing, but are we looking to diversify, which is what we should be advising our clients, right? So if we're looking to diversify, then advisory services becomes an option. If we're looking to get into that, how can we make sure that the compliance side of the business, which is possibly the cash cow, remains in growth mode?
Yeah, and I mean, I guess that leads into that question of, how do you stay ahead of the curve? If there's a lot of technology coming through, a lot of AI, a lot of efficiency gains, how does a firm stay at the front of the curve? What are your thoughts on that? I've got quite a few myself.
You go on, Mark. I could talk it off a stop. But AI, I think the AI and technology generally, from AI, not just from AI, but technology generally is rapidly growing, right? So we're talking RPA, robotic process automation, right? Which is robotics, and it's not new. It's not new tech. This tech has been around for the last at least 13 years in the current form, but in a different form. We'll be writing scripts. So as far back as 1999, I was writing DB scripts for AIX systems, right? So the technology has been around. The problem is, problem and opportunity. The problem is that it's been way too expensive for small businesses to adopt, right? And therein, the opportunity that has presented itself is that now with cloud accounting and cloud computing, right? There's been a democratization of the tools and the technologies, which is making it more affordable for small businesses, right? So I think in terms of what they should be doing, I think all practices need to be making themselves aware of this new tech and actually have an innovation team, even if it's a team of one, which means you put in an hour every week, reviewing technologies, understanding what they are, testing, experimenting. Because wherever we are today, in 5 years' time is going to change. I predict that compliance services as we know it, right, will be run by AI robots in the next 5 years. Not just in accounting, I see it happening in healthcare, right? As an example, so deviate a little bit. My wife is a GP, and I've told her that everything that's going to happen in GP land, you're going to have GPs as supervisors. We're going to have AI customer service. PRAs are coming in already. Legal, we have AI already doing some legal work. So accounting is not going to be any different, right? But AI is not going to be the one that's taking our jobs. It will be the firms who very quickly adopt these technologies and find use cases that is applicable and that can be of benefit, not just to them, but to their clients.
And I think there's the key: adopting the technology that you want and need, and not losing sight of the human side. So increasing the number of touch points or communication channels with your clients, or face-to-face or online meetings with clients. So running really good meetings with AI software behind that to help record the meetings, just like many people are doing on this call now, but also how to have pre-work prior to a meeting, get the client doing some thinking. These are things that AI can't answer questions of clients. So, and then having that interaction. So using the technology to improve the efficiency, take the efficiency gains and enhance the service from a human element that you're providing to your clients. That takes you up that value curve, and also enables you to have better quality client relationships. And because otherwise, if you don't, and when I'm not a scaremonger, I've been in this game for 30 years. I've been a chartered accountant for 30 years, and people have always been talking about accountants being made redundant. I've never seen it, and I don't predict that it will happen either. But we do need to adopt and adopt the new technology, adapt in a way that enables us to free ourselves up to have better meetings with clients, better relationships, and speak to the clients about what it is that their problems and challenges are, what their goals are, and offer them a solution in the form of a service. So that service might be cash flow profit improvement meeting, it might be business planning, it might be just holding them to account. But behind the scenes, the technology or the offshoring and the outsourcing is working really hard in the background. That the margins on that might be trimmed a little bit, but the margins on the other work won't be as challenged. That's my thoughts. All right, well, we're probably getting towards the end, Kanayo. So in terms of next steps, what do you think the next steps are for people? I've got some thoughts here in terms of where we could go next. There's a QR code that we have that's on the slide deck. Let me just get to the right place and share my screen. Oh, you've got that. You beat me to it. Perfect. So you've got that QR code for people to, if they want to book a demo with you. Equally, if people want to find out more about the Gap, they can jump on a trial there, or they can book a demo with Phil Sayers at our team. I think Debs is potentially going to put some questions into the chat for us now in terms of what your thoughts are or what your next steps would be. And we're also pretty keen to get some feedback from you on the value from this session as well. And certainly we've got time for questions if people have any questions. I suspect a few people are watching the recording of this, given I'm in New Zealand, and there's a few people wanting to watch this in New Zealand as well and not wanting to stay up this late to watch it.
Okay. So I think they've put the questions in. I'm just gonna read it out. So, what are the next steps? How valuable did you find today's fireside chat? 1 being not valuable, and I think 5 being very valuable. And we have a 5.
That's very kind, Sophie. Thank you.
Okay. And while we're waiting for that, the next one, the second question as well is, what 3 actions will you take as a result of this fire? Now, this I'm really keen to get. So what are the 3 actions you will take as a result of this fireside chat? What are you going to do today or this week? Go on. Have a think about it. If you haven't thought, if nothing comes to mind immediately, have a think about it. And I think the key thing is always remember, I think actions really is everything. So we can sit, we can talk, we can plan, we can dream, but nothing really happens till we do something. So, right. I think there are a few other things in there, but yeah, so have a read. That this will be available as well after the webinar, I guess. Any final thoughts, Mark? Okay, thanks, Sophie.
Yeah, I think the main thing here is yeah, you've given us 47 minutes so far of your time. How will you get an ROI from the time that you've spent? What do you need to do? Think about that productivity pyramid. Good on you for listening in. Don't be afraid of technology. I love the idea of an innovation team, an hour a week, just having a look at what's out there and what's around. Surround yourself with like-minded people who are already doing this work as well, because you can learn a lot from them. Maybe join an accountability coaching group if you don't have a group already that you're part of. There's lots of ways that we can help you as well at the Gap, and I'm sure at Sinnergy we can help as well, putting you in contact with other like-minded people who've been down this path before. And so, yeah, really important to make sure that you take action as a result of being here. So thanks very much, Debs, for sharing all of those links. Kanayo, I think that's it. I think appreciate the time with you, and looking forward to doing a lot more with Sinnergy. And thanks for your time, and thanks, Debs, for everything you've done in the background for us with us as well.
Thanks, Mark. I think the only final thing I'll add to that is, if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, if you're on the call and you haven't had a session with or you haven't had a session with the Gap, with Mark, with Debbie, I will say find time to do that. Personally, I attended one of their events, feels a long time ago now. Was it in July or was it in June? But it was a full day event, and I came in there not expecting anything. I'm not an accountant. We haven't got an accounting practice, so I walked in there not expecting anything. But I can say that I walked out of that meeting with a few notes that is applicable to my business. So that I learned a few things that I'm applying to Sinnergy today. So I don't think it will be a waste of anybody's time to have at least a meeting with either Mark or one of or Debbie or Phil or any of the guys within the Gap. And if there is a trial, I believe there's a trial of the Gap membership.
Yep.
And I think it's 30 days. If it was me, I'll be taking those 30 days, right? So there's so much you could get from it. That's the only thing. And I haven't been paid to say it. Just to put it out there. There's nothing. I'm getting nothing from saying it, but I think it's definitely of benefit to whoever is watching this that's not a Gap member today.
Great. Thanks very much
for having you guys on, Mark.
Yeah, very, very kind words. And likewise, we wouldn't be having a session with you if we didn't like what we've seen in your product as well. So thanks very much, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day. It's the end of the day for me.